If you think you have to have vintage patterns to make these beautiful bookmarks, I'm here to tell you that's not true. I'm Donna from Australia, and today I'm going to show you how I make these little lovelies so you can make some for your books, or like me, I made them for my junk journals. I've made 8 bookmarks and only 3 of them are made from original vintage sewing pattern envelopes. The others I used digital prints. The first way I make my bookmarks is with this baby's dress smock pattern. The second way, I use my favourite digi-prints from Christie Art Design. But there's so many other things you can use instead of. First off, I'd like to give credit to 𝗵𝗵𝗸𝗀𝗃 for the original idea I saw on her blog. Now, because I know not all of you have a stash of vintage goodies, I wanted to give you an alternative. And I think you'll love the digital background papers I've used from Amity Bloom and the vintage fashion ladies from Christie Art Design. If you've got lots of scrappy scraps, you can make these. So let's get started. The bookmark size itself is 2 inches by 7 inches. And this is a really good size because it's going to fit in the height of a journal that is both A4 and letter paper size. It'll also fit the ladies or the babies on any pattern envelope or any cutout. So it's a really good size for you to use. You can always adjust this size. You're not set in concrete. I'm using some old 200 to 250 GSM cardstock. It's got some stains on it, and it doesn't matter because I'm going to cover it up. I'm going to cut them into 4 2-inch wide strips, and then I cut them off at my 7-inch length mark. If you're going to use an old pattern envelope, I just pull out everything that's inside. This stuff can be used as well, but I'm just going to use the envelope for this part. Very carefully tear down the joins. Now, because they're old, it's easy to do, but take your time so you don't accidentally rip your paper. You want to use every part of this envelope. Now, to cut out, I want to get 3 bookmarks out of this one pattern envelope. This is a wide envelope. Not all of them are this wide. So I'm just going to use my bookmark itself for the pattern. So I'm just going to cut the back off first. I'm just going to use a full piece just to make it easy. And I'm going to glue this down on the back of my bookmark. And I'm using a piece of the pattern instructions, and I'm fussy cutting out this piece here, and I'm going to glue it straight down over the top. Now, it's a good idea to trim the excess off the edge if it's overhanging now, because if you glue the front piece on, you won't know where the edge is. To get the right measurement for my front piece, I'm just going to use the bookmark and pencil around it and then cut this out. And now I'll do a test fit. I don't want to use all of the background of this pattern. I want it to look a little bit more interesting, so I'm doing some fussy cutting. Now I've got my fussy cut pieces all ready to go. The background looks plain. It looks boring. So I've gone to the inside pattern pieces again. And this is transfer paper. It's blue dots on some tissue paper. I'm going to use my spray adhesive. Spraying it on both pieces is going to make this glue permanent. Then I just lay the tissue paper over the front of my bookmark, and I'm going to put it on an angle just to give it a little bit more interest. And then I very gently just pat it down with my hand and flatten it with my bone folder. Now when I glue all my fussy cut pieces down, it's going to look far more interesting than that original envelope did when I first cut it out. So now I've got all of these pieces glued down in layers. I'm just smoothing them down. Now all I've got to do is trim back the excess. When you're using a craft knife to trim, especially tissue paper, you've got to go slow, otherwise it'll tear. If you're using scissors, just use the edge of your bookmark as a guide. And don't the dots on the background look beautiful? It looks so nice. I've gone ahead and I've made the other two. This time I've chopped them up a little bit more and I've used some of the pattern paper itself as part of the design. You can use anything you like. I've used only the pattern paper and the envelope to make these 3 bookmarks. For these bookmarks, I'm using digital papers. I'm using both Amity Bloom and Christie Art Designs. I've enlarged the prints of these ladies here so that they're roughly the same size as the ladies on a Butterick pattern. And for this print here, I actually printed it out much smaller. This JPEG would normally fill up the whole page, but I printed it at 4 by 6 inches, and that's so the pattern on the background was a smaller print and it would look better in a 2-inch wide bookmark. So this one here I printed at 80%, and that way the Darling Remember to Bloom, Simply Bloom prints just inside the 2-inch wide strip. So here are the ladies. They fit perfectly in this bookmark, and all the bits and pieces that I've used from the Amity Bloom pages, when you print them at all different sizes and use bits and pieces of the tags and the envelopes, you can tear them up, pair them with washi tape, as well as some of the tissue paper out of a pattern. It doesn't have to be a vintage pattern to do this. You just need some of this lovely brown pattern paper. Tear them up and glue them all over the front and the back of your bookmark, and then just put your fussy cut ladies over the top. Add some stamps or whatever you've got in your stash, and no one will ever know that you didn't use a vintage sewing pattern envelope. To finish off your bookmarks, we're going to punch a tiny hole in the center of the top. I'm using a 1/8 inch Fiskars punch to do this, and you can add tassels, you can add ribbon or sari silk. This one here is a beautiful, like a really pale blue. This is a double-sided pink satin ribbon. This blue vintage trim is perfect for this one, but it's too chunky. So instead of tying a knot, I just push it through the hole, and I use some fabric glue to glue it in place and hold it still. It's still going to look beautiful, and no one will ever know that I've glued these pieces in. This one here is a piece of trim off one of my old blouses. All I did was, before I threw the blouse out when it was too old, I just cut the tassels off it because I knew they'd come in handy one day. And look at the colour, it's perfect. So you only want something narrow. This is a piece of sari silk. And what I do to get my sari silk really narrow is I just cut off the length I want, and then I tear it down the centre. You don't need much at all. It's just to complement your bookmark. This is a piece of silk that I eco-dyed many years ago, and it's just an offcut. You can even put a bow on it if you want to. This piece here is a bit pale, and I tossed and turned, thought, oh, well, I'll put the bow on, and I may do later on because I can always take this piece out. These are so easy to make and they are just adorable. You can use scraps, you can use your vintage sewing pattern envelopes, you can use modern sewing pattern envelopes, you can use digital printouts. I absolutely loved making these. I've got some of this beautiful trim here in my shop. I've got too much of it to use myself. I put the link in the description box below if you want to go and check it out.
Didn't want to slow down, but baby, then you came around. Yeah, you came around. No, I won't ever let you down. I promise you that I'll hold on. I know that it gets tough sometimes, so I'm here to remind you, love. The sun will shine on you wherever you go, wherever you go. And when it gets dark,